So begins the end. For Darkseid.
I've never seen a being as strong. Maybe one. He's back.
Attached to any of it. No, she's the ruiner.
She
ruins everything.
Ruiner. She was good in the room.
She was phenomenal in the room.
Yeah, she didn't ruin that.
No, she actually made it succeed. But
she was the succeeder there.
But what she did in the Avengers, I won't even mention her movie. But what she did in the Avengers.
You mean how she did what the Hulk and Scarlet Witch could have done?
Yeah, what TV show is that from? The Ruiner. Ruined everything. Oh, man.
You ruined everything. I can't remember.
Maybe I'm thinking it's the Adam Sandler movie.
It should have been. It's probably like an ensemble cast of a TV show where they all... Might have been Pierce or something. I don't know.
Well,
I get Community on the brain.
In New Girl, they tend to do that to her a lot because they say that
who's that girl?
She kind of like ruins everything, basically, like any kind of jokes or anything else like that.
She does. She's hilarious.
Oh man, that show is got to be one of the greatest comedy shows. Not the, but one of the greatest comedy shows ever because it's one of those shows like I don't consider it a comedy show unless it pretty much makes me laugh the entire time. Like Parks and Rec, The Office, Big Bang Theory. Even Big Bang Theory doesn't make me laugh all the time, but 90% of it. Like The Office, I can't watch without laughing at least every 5 seconds.
She's my favorite Deschanel sister.
Really?
Because... the one that's on Bones, that's my wife's favorite, I think.
Well, that's...
Emily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bones is in my top 10 favorite shows.
It's a very good show. I like Bones. How they have kind of the rotating text or whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, all right. So, guys, we just wanted to hop on here and do a quick little thing about the Josstice League, the Snyder Cut. We don't usually do this with newer movies or whatever, unless we really like it, but this is such an achievement.
It's epic.
And such a thing in the comic book movie verse and stuff for the last couple of years. There's been a lot of controversial stuff about it. There's been a lot of people shouting down what they call the toxic Snyder diehard fans, saying there is no Snyder Cut. It doesn't exist. Stop asking for it and all this.
But I wouldn't even consider you being a toxic Snyder fan.
No, but I mean,
I'm not either.
No, so there's others on there that are saying, trash the Joss Whedon, garbage. But then there's also shills out there, okay? So you have some YouTubers, which we won't mention, and some, personalities or whatever that they get paid. They get paid by studios to give good reviews to movies and to shout down other things and all that kind of stuff. And so that's a lot of what was happening.
Yeah.
But now it's been watched even by the critics of something that they hadn't even seen yet. And now we have the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
Now we watched this the other night. I watched it a week ago.
Yeah.
And I made sure that you waited to watch it until you got over here so we could watch it in the theater.
I spent a lot of time trying to divide us. I made a promise to him on his grave. I need to bring us together. There are enemies coming from far away.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, originally, the only spoiler I saw was the end of it, was the one with Flash running back in time. But it wasn't what I was... Like when I read the headline, because I didn't search for it.
So you didn't even read about the full scene. It was just Flash uses time travel at the end.
And anybody that knows me knows I'm a huge Flash fan, and so I read that just scrolling through this and that, and it's not what I expected. I didn't think that it was going to be, to that epicness of storytelling, not so much the scene as the storytelling to create the scene. And I know we're kind of working our way back through the Josstice League on that part, but the epicness of that scene with the Flash got me excited for the actual Flash movie, where I wasn't before, even because I just don't see, and we differ in this opinion, but I don't see Ezra Miller being the Flash. I see Grant Gustin being the Flash. I mean,
is that how you say his name?
I don't know. I'd probably
it looks
say
like Grant Gustin.
Gustin. I think it is Grant Gustin. I don't know.
I don't know how it's said. I'd always said Grant Gustin, but when you said it like that, I was like, oh, I didn't know. Maybe it's said a different way or something.
Yeah. But I mean, a huge Flash fan. I love the Shipley or what's his name? John Wesley Shipp. I love that show. I love that when I was a kid, I watched it when it first came out. And
you know what I remember about that?
What's that? Right
before it, it was either Cops or Unsolved Mysteries that played before that.
Yeah.
I think it was Unsolved Mysteries because then it says, it's like, oh, join us again for Unsolved Mysteries. Everything else is just fiction. And then right after that would play The Flash. And that's how I figured out the meaning of fiction.
Right.
The word fiction.
Yeah.
Fiction like, okay, it's not real.
Yeah.
And when you say nonfiction, it means not real.
Right. Well, just, I mean, with that's how long I've been a Flash fan. I've been since I was a kid, since the 90s, I mean, I wasn't even 18 at that time. But, I seeing this on the big screen was just phenomenal, because when I originally watched it, I was just like, man, they just made him the court jester. He was the court jester of the film. And it was granted, Flash. That's
same
why
thing with Cyborg.
Well, I mean, exactly.
Cyborg had nothing.
Yeah, and Flash and Flash in the comic books is really he's a bit of a jokester, but not even as much as Green Lantern is. But that's why they're best friends. You know what I mean? So it was like, okay, I see where you're going to put a little bit of comedy from the Flash, because he's extremely egotistical, when it comes to how fast he really is, but just seeing that end scene with Ezra Miller, I mean, he played it beautiful. It was beautiful.
And
it was
Snyder played it beautiful with the visuals and the music. So, so this movie, he had it in a vision with some other movies, right?
Yeah.
He had like a 5-movie project. So there were supposed to be 2 other movies after this.
Yeah.
That was going to be what we got for like the entire Zack Snyder verse,
right?
Is what they're calling it right now, is the Snyderverse. So this movie cut out any kind of Joss Whedon version cut out any kind of character development with Barry, any kind of real character development with Cyborg, because if you see what Snyder did with him here versus what Joss Whedon did with him, it's an atrocity.
And look what he did with Wonder Woman and Batman too, in the sense that
he made them forefront.
Yeah, forefront. But I mean, and I understand the Trinity. It's always been the Trinity with those 3. You know what I mean? But the fact that even Batman and Wonder Woman, you didn't get a lot from them. It was just kind of like a little graze over their story. I mean, it was very centered around Superman, which there's nothing wrong with that, because that's the driving force of this story. But the fact that like it would almost look like Whedon was like, okay, I'm just gonna let the previous Wonder Woman films and scenes and things like that, and the previous Batman, kind of tell that story, and I'm just not going to really tell anymore with their story either. And then with the Flash of Cyborg, I mean, it was nothing. We got nothing. And then so a lot of it was surrounding the world missing Superman, which it was the driving force of this film. I mean, Aquaman, They had to throw a lot of scenes, and Jason Momoa really kind of took over a lot of the scenes in both sides of the movie, I think.
They serve an old power.
This world is divided. No protectors here. No lanterns. No Kryptonian. It will fall in his name.
Well, they had to set up a universe, right? Okay, because they didn't want to go the Marvel route. They could have and maybe should have, but they didn't want to. Okay, so what's your best bet at that? Zack Snyder's going to be your best bet at that, because, and the end result shows it, because after the Man of Steel, after the BVS Ultimate Cut, the actual 3-hour version that he wanted to release, and then after this Snyder Cut, you finally get a sense of seeing what he's trying to do, and seeing what DC should have done from the very beginning is just let Zack Snyder do his thing. He is a huge fan of Superman and the comics and all that kind of stuff. He knows what he's doing, and he knows what he's talking about. When you have a studio that has a guy that's this visionary doing what he's done in these last 3 movies, and you got 2 babysitters coming down to set and babysitting him every day to make sure he's not doing anything crazy, it's BS. That's why Snyder didn't care. He'd film the WV version, and then he'd film his own version, you know? So here's the root of the problem. People want DC to play out like Marvel movies because they've been so successful and they're so likable and you can just enjoy them, right?
Okay.
But DC has never been that way. Maybe in the beginning they were, bright, happy tales and all that kind of stuff. But, for the last, let's say 30 years at least, at a minimum, it's been a gods among men type of universe. This very surreal place, okay? So Marvel is very grounded, closer to reality, uses the cities we have in the real world, right? Whereas what is it? DC, they have made up cities: Metropolis, Gotham, Central City. You'll hear them mention Chicago, Atlanta, but you never really hear them mention New York. You never really hear them. I'm sure it's in there or whatever, but I mean, you have these made up cities because this world is more surreal. It's more fantastical. It's a gods among men storyline. In the DC world, the people like Ares, Zeus, and all this, these were gods, but these were people with superpowers.
Yeah.
Just like we have nowadays in the comic books and stuff. But it was just way back in ancient times, so they saw him as gods. So that's how they explain that. But this should be viewed as more like a Lord of the Rings fantasy epic. And people want to see them as superheroes like the Marvel Universe. And that's not what DC is.
No.
That's not what DC is. DC is a gods among men, surreal, fantastical, almost mythology, like a Lord of the Rings. So it should be viewed as an epic like that. And I like how this movie, it works as a finale, but it also works as a bridge if Warner Brothers wants to use it.
Yeah.
It wraps up pretty much everybody's characters where you could say, okay, that could be the end, and you can assume that they still go on and do their own adventures, but this was the main threat that they had to beat or whatever. And maybe Darkseid comes, maybe it doesn't, but it still acts. If this is it, that can be a good ending because they all kind of wrap up. You got Superman pulling his suit aside and his suit's under there and everything like that. So I mean, it could be an ending, but it could be a bridge to a universe. And as of right now, this time on what's the date today? Today's the 29th of March. WB has no plans to move forward with the Snyderverse. Joss Whedon's version is going to be the canon that they could go to, but they're saying, Snyder's version is an alternate reality because they're going to go huge on the multiverse now. So basically, now they're like, well, we can't figure out how to connect all these people, so we're going to just say we don't have to connect them, and they can be in their own movies. Same, but maybe we can have other movies, like the old Michael Keaton coming into the new Flash movie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're not going with this setup universe that Snyder so beautifully set up.
Yeah.
It explains everything so perfectly in this movie, and it really rounds out the trilogy of Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Cut, and this movie, and it makes those other first 2 movies much better by seeing where he was going, right?
Yeah. Well, I think here's the difference with these 2 films that we got, right? And I don't disagree with anything you just said about, setting up the universe and I agree with you 100%, but I'm also kind of a more realist when it comes to these movies now because I realize that they're not going to really do what I want them to do, and that's every fanboy's, want, in films like this. They want you to do and put these scenes in, and they want you to tell this side of the story or this story, individually.
Yeah, because I was angry at Batman versus Superman. I was like, hey, what is this? This isn't like Marvel. I was the same way. This isn't like Marvel. This is too moody.
Yeah,
Superman's not supposed to be a movie. This is a graphic novel brought to life. If you pause the first Avengers movie that Joss Whedon did, or even maybe parts of Age of Ultron, but if you pause them, it looks kind of like a I don't know, a Buffy show or something like that.
Yeah.
Very bright and colorful, but it kind of almost looks like television filming. Whereas you take any part of the Snyder Cut Justice League and pause it, it could be a frame in a graphic novel.
Yeah.
It could be a panel in a graphic novel. That's the point. He's trying to make something that has more substance.
Yep.
And more stylistic, completely opposite, and he does it well.
Yeah.
If you can accept that, if you can accept it's not going to be Marvel.
I have turned worlds to dust. All of existence shall be mine.
Well, and see where this is how I explain it. You've got Joss Whedon, and then you got the Snyderverse, or Snyder, directing two totally different films, because that's what they are. You know,
A lot of the same scenes.
A lot of the same scenes, but
completely different movies.
I mean, almost down to the story even. But it's
crazy.
The thing is what Whedon did, and I'm not going to knock him 100%. I might be one of these people that don't knock him 100% for this film. But what Whedon was called in to do was just kind of, you ever see that meme on Facebook or whatever where it's like a horse, right? And there's 3 sections. Well, one artist drew it like this way, and another artist drew it like this one, and the 3-year-old drew this side, the front side. That's kind of what Whedon had to do with this film, I feel like. Like, he had to just basically finish it out. So Whedon's type of storytelling, he dips in. You know, it's like a solid line where he dips every once in a while, dips into the waters of the canon and the lore, where Snyder dives fully in and stays under and then comes back up at the end.
Yeah, I can see that. I wouldn't put all the blame on Whedon, because it was obvious that Warner Brothers wasn't happy with what Zack Snyder was doing. They wanted Marvel as well.
Yeah.
But you can't, if you're not setting up individual movies like Marvel do, you can't do a joint movie like this.
Yeah.
Really, in many other ways.
Yeah.
And Snyder found one of the rare ways that you can do it like this, because it got this huge Justice League established now, right?
Yeah.
Now they can go off in all these different directions with their movies and have
so many
Snyder,
separate different storytells.
Yeah, have Snyder executive produce it, so he can keep all the stories in track, if that's something that he wanted to do. But I mean, you can go so many places from here and expand on new heroes, new movies, new singular movies. You wanna what do you call it? With many people on it.
A cat.
Not an entourage. Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
like,
I know what you're saying.
An ensemble cast.
Yeah, there you go.
So you have an ensemble cast that is now if you want to start a superhero movie off like that, I mean, you had Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, but if you want to go straight into an ensemble cast, you got to explain some things. You have to take those 4 hours to explain some things, and the way it's laid out like a miniseries, if people people in their head, they're sitting there and bitching about watching a 4-hour movie. Why is it got to be so long? And then they turn it off and they go and binge watch 10 episodes of Community, which is like the equivalent or whatever. And that's okay, because it's a TV show. So if you just get it in your head, okay, let's view this as a mini series, so I can binge watch it if I want to, because I'll tell you what, those 4 hours fly right by. Or I can break this up into parts. Either way, it's going to be a good movie.
But see, and the only thing is like, we're kind of, me and you right now, we're kind of talking on like it's going to be something that very well possibly could happen, but from what I'm reading and everything else, everything tells me right now that it'll never happen. The Snyderverse will, even though it's broken Twitter, broken records on social media, they will not bring back Snyderverse, because it's gonna, for one, it's probably gonna cost them, because Zack Snyder's gonna be like, if they ever like, hey, can you come back and film this? Okay, I want triple the amount of money I directed for last time.
Well, maybe I don't think he seems like that guy. He very well
what
could.
I mean? Yeah,
he could, and he has every right to, or whatever. But with WB not having as much faith in him as they do, that they're sending babysitters down, with all these people just talking trash and everything. They saw the Joss Whedon cut. They say, really, you only need 1 day of reshoots? It's going to be a terrible movie. There's nothing that can change it. It's like we talked about. This movie is an example, a prime example, if not the prime example, of the power of editing and the power of a vision. And somebody carrying out their own vision versus somebody coming in and meddling, whether it's Joss Whedon, whether it's Warner Brothers, all of that.
Because he wanted to come fix it like immediately after it was released. I mean, it was
no. After it was released, Christopher Nolan and I think it was Chris Terrio, or maybe it was the other dude who wrote Blade and the first Man of Steel. I can't remember his name. I'll think of it, but basically, Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder's wife was like, it is our goal in life to make sure that you never see this movie.
Yeah.
Because you do not want to see how it was butchered.
Yeah.
So they actively made sure that Zack Snyder never saw the Josstice League from Joss Whedon. And to this day, he still hasn't. He's seen it through memes, he said on the internet. He sees memes on like the mustache thing. He hasn't seen the movie, so he's only seen it on the internet. And it just like he goes, I don't know how that movie got turned into that.
I have a second chance. I am not going to waste it.
He said the age of heroes would never come again.
Fighting the devil and his army. You know, I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us united.
well, and it's crazy because I read something today that the same thing happened to Chris Evans during the first Avengers movie. At the very end of the first Avengers movie, where they're eating dinner and stuff.
Well, yeah, he had a beard.
He had a beard, but they had a prosthetic jaw over him, and that's why he's the only one not eating.
Well, I don't know. I can't remember if he wasn't eating, but yeah, he just has his fist here, and if you see, it's a post-credit scene for the first Avengers movie when they're all eating shawarma. They had to come back because I can't remember what it was that he was filming, but it was one of the
Snowpiercer.
Was it Snowpiercer?
Yes.
Yeah, because I know he had a beard. So they had to get some kind of like little prosthetic skin to put over the beard, and then he had his fist, like he was resting his hand on his fist down, and that's what kind of covered up the awkward looking prosthetic for it.
And the problem with DC or with Warner Brothers, they were like, okay, well, let's just put him on the gigantic screen so people can not notice it.
Full-on face shot of Superman. I don't know. I think that they're like, Joss Whedon's like, this is how I want it, because you can't blame him for all of it, but you can blame him for a lot of it because he did come in and do, I believe it was 80-something pages of new pages that they shot. So they had to come in for 80 new pages. When Zack Snyder came back and did his, they did 1 day of reshoots. And I'm pretty sure it's the scene with Batman and a certain alien towards the end of the movie and everything. But I believe that's the only besides that, it was all shots that he had, but they were on his personal computer.
Yeah.
And so when it first came around, WB is like, hey, here's our idea. Should we just release what you have now on your computer? No effects, anything like that, but just so people can kind of get an idea of the story. And Zack Snyder just goes, no, because that will give you and all the haters reason to say, see, his version was crap. Because if you can't see it in a fully fleshed out version, there's no point in seeing the crappy version because it's going to take away from it. You're going to think it's crappy. So anyways, it's one of these things like, no, I'm not going to do that. They wanted him to release an unedited, no CGI version of that, and thank God he goes, no, I'm not doing that because that, and he knew, he goes, that will give you, Warner Brothers, and all the haters fuel to say, see, his was crap and everything. So they said, and Warner Brothers didn't pay 1 penny towards this. You know that, right? It was HBO Max that paid for the that paid for all the different reshoots that he had to do, all the advertisement for it. Warner Brothers didn't do jack. In fact, they kind of did some shady things to go against it because HBO Max is owned by Time Warner, I think, Media or Warner Media or something like that, and so is Warner Brothers. Yeah. So it was the parent company that told HBO Max, you can fund this, and Warner Brothers is sitting there, they can't say jack about it. Yeah. So they just have to put up with it or whatever. But now it's like there's so much online of, this, it better be Snyderverse or I won't watch it. Yeah. And so now kind of Warner Brothers is kind of in a tight spot. It looks like they're planting their feet firmly. looks like they're standing their ground and they're going to go with the Joss Whedon version. I imagine they have some kind of a plan with the Flash movie to reset everything.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know in the comics that Flash can do that. But final thoughts. We didn't want to dive in too much of this. We could go over it, but maybe one day we'll do a review of the entire trilogy of movies or whatever. But your final thoughts on this?
It's time to stand. Fight. The time is now.
It was amazing. It was amazing, and I don't think I could watch. I'm going to watch The Flash just because it's Flash, but anything else, I don't know if I'm really interested anymore.
That's the same thing with Star Wars for me. I'm, a biggest fan of Star Wars and everything, but after this Obi-Wan series comes out, I don't know if I'm going to be watching much more of it because, I enjoy the stories that we already have and I can see where it's going. So I'll just enjoy the stories that we have. But yeah, I agree. I think that if anybody's watched the Joss Whedon Justice League version and they're not planning on watching Zack Snyder because, after all, how different could it really be? Yeah. Let me tell you, it is a completely different movie. You'll see some similar scenes, but even the similar scenes, Zack Snyder has different takes of those scenes that he used. Yeah. So even those are slightly different. But the entire story is completely different. The motivations are completely different. Steppenwolf is completely different. And he's not really the main villain. I mean, he kind of is, but you get to meet more of Darkseid and all that kind of stuff. So please, if you have HBO Max, give this a watch. I'm waiting for it to come out because I'm going to include it in my own little trilogy of Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Cut, and that one. And I'd have to say this is probably my favorite trilogy of comic book movies. It used to be Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight series, but Man of Steel came out, and I immediately started to see where they were going with it, and I'm now glad. I am now glad they went the direction that they did because things are so much more epic in DC. Things are so much more bigger and more consequential and all that kind of stuff. So give it a watch. We endorse it. It is endorsed by the Post Credit Podcast, and please go watch it. This is definitely the canon version. Suck it, Joss.